Hello, this is Mr. Jarrett, and in this video tutorial, I'm going to be 3D modeling this object. This object demonstrates a broken out view or section view. So you can see right here that this portion of it has these little angled lines. That means the other half of this, because this is one big circle, the other half of this was broken out or removed temporarily. So the reason why it's removed is to show you that this is actually a hollow curving pipe. This is almost like some sort of pipe fitting here. You can see there's a core inside. So just to kind of show you what this looks like when it's all finished, you see how there's a curved hole through there. So it's almost like some type of pipe fitting. This would get attached to something, obviously, and so would this up here that curves around the corner. So where do we begin with this? Well, it says that the origin is located in the center of this this hole, and it's at the bottom. Okay, center and at the bottom. So we're going to be drawing this bottom portion first, and then we're going to be making a closed-in profile and the path that goes up through the middle here. And we're going to be using the swept boss base to create the pipe, and then towards the end, we're going to use the swept cut in that same path to cut back down through the pipe to make it hollow. Okay, so this is in inches. So I'm going to pull this to my other screen. If you have the ability to do that, I would recommend doing so. And we are going to be making a new part, and make sure your units are in IPS. Then you'll click on the sketch tool and the top plane. So the center of this entire thing is the origin. So that means we need to be drawing that base piece wrapping around the entire origin. And we're going to do that with the center rectangle tool. So click on the origin and draw out. And from here, most people would fillet these corners to give you that center point to put the circle on. But I want to show you a little bit of a different approach to this. So in most cases, when you have a fillet, or in most cases of what we've been drawing, when you have an object that has a fillet like this and a circle right there, normally they share the exact same center point. But I can tell you from doing this previously that if you put your fillet in and you make it a radius of 0.56 and then put your circle there and you do the same thing for this, the space in between will not be 2.62. It will actually be 2.63. So that means they do not share the same center point. Even though they look like they do, this picture is a little bit blurry, so you can't assume that. The center points are probably right next to one another. Okay, so we're going to be filleting at 0.56. We're not going to be putting the circles on the center points. We're going to be just lining them up, and I'll show you a different way of doing that, and then we'll dimension them of 2.62 apart. So I'm going to get my fillet tool, and that radius was 0.56, and that's going to be all four corners. Hit the green check. And it says that this entire piece is a square of 3.75. So get your dimension tool, click on one side and then the opposite side. That's going to be 3.75. And then we'll do that again the other direction. 3.75. So now we have this thing fully defined. And this is where I was talking about, here's the center point. Most people would put the circle right on it. But what we actually need to do is put the circle in a little bit. So I am once again going to get my center rectangle tool, and I'll be clicking on the origin and sliding out, and I'm not going to connect it to that center point. So I'm just going to click in here, and then on the left side, if you scroll over, you'll see that it says for construction. So I'm going to check for construction. So I just made a construction box, basically. Now, the reason why I did this is because it gave me a center point, more or less, or a dot, an end point here, corner points that we can put our circles on. So I got my circle tool. I'm going to click on that spot, make a circle. You're going to do that for each one of these. And while you're doing this, the other nice thing about putting a rectangle in like this is it saved me a lot of clicking back and forth to make these circles horizontal, these vertical, these vertical. It saves you a lot of time. But you can now select all four of these circles by holding in Shift, and we're going to set that to equal. Now we can dimension one of these circles, and it says on the picture that they all have a diameter of 0.38. And the space in between, which once again, we can just click right on this line now that we have that rectangle, is going to be 2.62. But you may or may not, depending on how you clicked earlier, you may or may not get this make driven command. So what that's saying is that some type of relation is actually keeping you from putting in the correct dimension that you want. So I'm going to hit cancel, and obviously that deleted that dimension that I just tried to put in. And before I dimension, I'm just going to look at this rectangle and see if there's anything that is odd. Well, there's an equal, a horizontal, an equal, a vertical, an equal, and then there's this coincident. So if you right click on that coincident mark right there, you might have to hit escape to get off your dimension tool. But if you right click and hit delete, that's probably what it was. And that probably just put that there because we were on this construction line and it tried to make it coincident to it. So sometimes SOLIDWORKS doesn't like that, even though it is really coincident to it. So let's try that again, Smart Dimension. And I'll click on this line. And again, that is 2.62. And that must have been it because now it's letting us dimension this. So just to go back to what I was saying earlier, looking really, really close here at this, there's the center point to the fillet, there's the center point to our circle. So if you would have put this on here, you wouldn't have actually had the right answer. You would have been extremely close, but it wouldn't have been the right answer. So now that we have that, we can go up to the Features tab and hit Extrude. And it says the base thickness is 0.5, so we're going to extrude that up 0.5 and green check. Okay, so we have the whole entire base done. And now what we need to do is make our path and our profile for that arcing piece. So I'm going to sketch on the bottom here. So get your sketch tool, rotate around to the bottom, select the bottom, and I'm going to hit Control 8, which is normal 2, so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to get the circle tool, click on my origin, and I'm going to make a big circle. And this is going to be the outside of this curved pipe piece, okay, the outside. So if we're looking back at this picture, it doesn't have a dimension anywhere for the outside. What it says is the core is 1.62, okay, that's the inside, and then it has a wall thickness of 0.38. So I can't just draw that circle and assume that that's going to be the outside. So you could do some math in your head, or what you could do is get the circle tool again and just draw another circle. And we're going to change this option to be for construction. So I can say, hey, this is going to be my inside and this will be my outside. Okay, so I'll dimension this inside circle, my core piece, to 1.62. And the space in between the two, so you just select one circle and select the other, is going to be 0.38, just like it says. So now I actually have my measurement for my outside circle. Okay, I'm going to hit Return from Sketch in the top right to get out of that. I'll hit Control 7 to go back to a good view, to an isometric. And here we need to draw that arcing piece. So I'm going to hit the Sketch tool, and we need a plane. So if I hit that drop down, we can kind of look at the planes. So we don't want a plane that goes this way. We don't want the top plane. We actually want the right plane. That's coming towards us. So the reason why I picked that is you can see in the picture that plane is going in the same direction this way that this line is. Okay, so we are going to be drawing an arc that goes from our origin up and around and stops right here. So it has a radius of 4.88 and it has an angle, so from the bottom up to the top of where this stops, an angle of 45 degrees. So we are sketching on our right plane. So let's hit Control 8 and that should rotate us around to a nice view. Might need to zoom out a little bit. And I'm going to start out by drawing with the line tool and drawing construction lines. So I'll click on my origin. I'm going to draw straight over, so this is a horizontal line. It doesn't matter how far. And then up here. Okay, and then I'll hit escape. And the reason why I did that is because this is going to allow me to dimension in between that 45 degrees. So get your dimension tool, click on both angled lines, or both lines, and type in 45 degrees. This also gave me kind of a starting and stopping spot. So if I just make sure that this angled line is up past my origin, I'm going to have a line that curves like that. Okay, so let's get our arc tool. And for this one, we want the center point arc. And that center point is going to be this end dot. Move over and click my origin, and I'll wrap up until I hit this line. Okay, then we'll hit the green check. So now it's stuck on there. So let's dimension this, and that's going to be 4.88 radius. And now that is fully defined. Now, if this construction line really bugs you, you can just drag this down until it attaches. Okay. Then we'll hit return from sketch. And here I now have a closed-in profile at the bottom, and I have my path. So we can go to the Features tab. We can hit the Swept Boss Base. And for your profile, you're going to click your circle. You might need to rotate around. Make sure you click the outside circle. And your path, you're going to click on that arc that you just drew. And there it is. So we can hit green check, and now we have our middle piece. Now this is still solid, it's not hollowed out. We're going to do the hollowed out portion towards the end of this. So from here we can draw that big part that's attached to the top. So get your sketch tool and click on that circle, and you'll hit Control 8 to rotate you around so you're at a good view. And I'm going to pull my picture back onto the screen so we can discuss this top portion. This top part here has an inside diameter, so there's kind of a construction circle, and that construction circle goes right through the center of these little cutouts. So these cutouts are two parts. Basically, it's kind of two parallel lines and then half of a circle. And the center of that circle is on this construction line. And then the outside circle, the overall diameter is 3.88. So our inside construction circle is 3.38. So we're going to be making two circles, and then we're also going to be creating this part as well. So in our sketch, let's get our circle tool. And if I move my mouse over this circle, and I just kind of pause there for a second, the center point will show up. So I can now just draw off of this. I'm going to do the same thing again. But this time I'm going to check the box for construction for that inside one. Okay, I'm going to dimension this a while. So that inside one is 3.38 and the outside circle is 3.88. Those two are pretty much set. They are still underdefined because even though we look like we locked it in right onto this circle, these things can still move. So you might have to click this arc, click this circle, and hold in Shift and click one of these circles, and then set them to concentric. So that would be to share the same center point. And now it'll be locked in place. But we can do our cutouts a while. And to do that, we are going to draw a circle, and I'll move over here to the left. And on my construction circle, if you move over to the left and you just pause, there'll be a yellow dot that pops up. So I'm going to draw a circle and then get your line tool. And from the top yellow dot straight out to this line, hit escape and do that again at the bottom. So the bottom yellow dot straight out to that line. Now we can trim. Get your trim tool, and I have this set to trim to closest. I'm going to trim this inside, okay, and I'll trim this piece. I'm going to get my Smart Dimension tool, and it doesn't actually have this arc dimensioned. What it has is from here to here, and it says that distance is 0.38. and now this part is fully defined. So from here, you can kind of decide how you want to actually have this cutout repeat itself 4 different times. Some people would extrude and then they would circular pattern, but by doing it with the features tab, you actually have to create an axis through the middle, and that's a little bit more difficult to do than what we already have. Some people would maybe try to mirror this, and they might even try to make a vertical construction line and a horizontal construction line, but what they would find is that's not going to get you up in here and here, up and down. You would actually have to do kind of a vertical line and then an angled line at a 45-degree angle to get it over. So the easiest way of doing this is actually just using the circular pattern right here in the sketching tab. So underneath the linear sketch, you're going to select circular sketch pattern, and we're going to click in the box down here that says entities to pattern. I'm going to zoom in so I make sure I click on the correct things. I'm going to click that line, the arc, and the other line, and it instantly just picks a point up here. So if you click back in that box, you see how this is kind of just going crazy. It doesn't know what to do. It wants to know the center point. So if we click the center point here, now it puts them in the correct spot. Okay, and obviously we want it set to 4, and we'll hit the green check. So it's still underdefined. I might have skipped an option in the circular pattern, but what that means is that this center point and these center points don't really know where to be locked in. So all I have to simply do is just click and hold on this center point and move up, and you see that yellow dot that appeared, drag it right back to that yellow dot, and now it has something to be coincident on. So it locks it in. So we still have the outside pieces here. So let's get our trim entities tool, trim to closest again, and then just trim these off. You'll have to do it up at the top and the bottom down here as well. Okay. Now we can go over to our features tab, hit extrude, and I believe the top part of this actually has a thickness of 0.5. So we already have that from doing the bottom. And I rotated the part to this view so you can see the direction that you're actually extruding this. So your computer will default to extrude this up, and that's probably a common mistake that a lot of students would make if they did this on their own. But if you looked back at this picture, this 45-degree construction line goes up and it's on top of this actual flanged piece. So that means we're not going to be extruding forward because that would be past this. We're going to be extruding back towards our original shape. Okay, so we need to change this direction by hitting the reverse button right there. Then we'll hit the green check. So now we have the top part done, and I'm going to hit Control-7 just to go back to my nice metric. So the next part that we need to do is actually cut this hole through the middle, that core hole. Okay, so let's get our sketch tool, rotate around to the bottom, and click on the bottom. I'm going to hit Control-8 so it goes to normal 2. We'll get my circle tool. I'll click on my origin and move out. Just draw one circle and dimension this to the original measurement, which was 1.62. Now, you could have actually gone through and looked at your old sketch and did a convert entities to your original construction circle in there, but that's a little bit more confusing than what I just did. So I just drew another circle, that's fine, and I dimensioned to 1.62. I'm going to hit the return from sketch button because now I have my core diameter circle. And now we can go to the features tab, and this time we're going to be using the swept cut. So for our profile, that's going to be that circle. If you can't select it from this angle, just rotate around to the bottom. And our path, we're going to be using the same path we already drew before. So I'm going to hit the drop down, and I'll find where it says sweep, hit the drop down. And sketch 2 was our circles, okay, the diameter. Sketch 3 is actually your path. So select sketch 3, that path, and if yours is numbered different, just find which one is your path, and then you'll hit the green check. So now this hole actually gets cut out and it's curved right up through. It followed that path. So the last thing we do here before we change the material is actually add in the fillets. So on your features tab, go up to fillet, and it says there are 4 fillets and it has a radius of 0.12. And those 4 fillets, if we're actually looking at this picture again, and I'll try to pull this back over. The 4 fillets are 1 is right here, 2 is right here, 3 is actually up underneath. You can kind of see it says 0.12 here. It's the same thing as this, and it's curved right there. And the 4th one is very hard to see, but it's actually this bottom back lip of the flange. So that would be rounded over so that when this connects to something, this is the part that would be seen on the outside. It is kind of curved, so it doesn't have a real sharp edge. So pull this back over, and our fillets, we need to set this to 0.12. And like I said, it's going to be this top line that goes the whole way around. Don't click on the top because that'll do those circles as well. Just click on the edge and it'll wrap the whole way around. The bottom of that circle, up underneath the inside part here, and then this part that goes the whole way around. Now you notice since we have those cutouts, you're going to have to actually click the whole way around this thing. There are 4 of those. So you might be saying, well, it says 4 spots and you have a lot more lines than that. Well, it's considering this entire circle as 1, this entire rectangle as 1. Now we can hit the green check, and let's change our material. The material is malleable cast iron. So that is one of the defaults right here, malleable cast iron. That changes it to black. Go up to evaluate, hit mass properties. Should have a mass of 4.47 pounds. If you got that, you can save this and move on to the next one. If you didn't, try to problem solve, rewind in the video, and figure out where you went wrong. Good luck.